Hello people, this is Doc Ron here recording. In this video, I'm going to talk about cryptocurrencies with the focus of Bitcoin. And of course, I'm going to introduce the blockchain technology behind these cryptocurrencies. And this video is in addition to chapter 2, the financial instruments. So cryptocurrencies are not from the textbook, but it's a newly emerged investment vehicle that draws a lot of attention from the world, and I think that deserves some lecture in my investment class. So if you look at this chart, I just downloaded today, and you will see that the Bitcoin prices has been very volatile, but the most attractive trend is that it was nearly worth nothing when it was invented. Somebody used 10,000 Bitcoin just to buy a pizza of $20. And then over the past decade or so, Bitcoin prices went up. And when they entered China, when the Chinese began to enter the market, there was a surge of prices. And then when the Chinese government banned Bitcoin, the Bitcoin price just went down dramatically. However, it did not prevent them from increasing on and on, especially during the COVID period. During the COVID, a lot of people get the stimulus checks, and some of them buy stocks, some of them buy Bitcoin, not just the food and the shelter. So you can see that post COVID, the Bitcoin also enjoyed a very huge price surge. And of course, that price increase has been accompanied with a big volatility. And now the trend has been going downward and downward. And at the peak, Bitcoin has a price of $60,000. And now the Bitcoin has a price of just a little less than $20,000. So Bitcoin is a digital currency. It is not dollars. It's not a euro or Japanese yen. It is a cryptocurrency. And one Bitcoin, according to the Bitcoin system, equals to 1 million Satoshi. And does not exist physically. You will not find a Bitcoin fostered or printed, not like the dollar coins, the dollar quarters, or the dollar bills. Okay, and a Bitcoin is not even a passcode. We use a passcode to record Bitcoin transactions, but Bitcoin by itself is not even a passcode. It's just a number existing in the booking system of the Bitcoin ecosystem. And that number it only exists in the digital ledgers of all the Bitcoin users. For example, in Bob's wallet, there are 10 Bitcoins. In John's wallet, there are 20 Bitcoins, so on and so forth. And everybody has a ledger, and that ledger, everybody's ledger is consistent with others. So everybody knows everything, and the Bitcoin basically is a common knowledge in the system. And Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. So the decentralized payment system has been existing since the ancient times. So you can see that I draw a diagram here. I have four types of population in Asia, and you can see that a Roman, a Chinese, a Persian, a Celtic, they're at different part of the world. If they want to pay each other, they have to look for each other, and their payments can only be bilateral, which means only two parties get involved for the payment, like a Persian pays a Roman or a Roman pays a Chinese, and so on and so forth. And you can see that in order for them to find each other, there's going to be a lot of search cost. And of course, associated with the search cost, there's going to be a large transaction cost to facilitate the payment. And in our modern financial system, the payment system is very centralized. So you have a central bank in the middle playing as a hub, and you also have different banks like Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They have their customers, and each customer have their accounts with the bank. So if a customer at Wells Fargo pays another customer at Bank of America, you see there's no dollar bills being transferred from one bank to another bank, from one person to another person. So it's just the number in bank 1 is marked off and the number in bank 2 is increased. And it's all coming from the ledger or the booking system of the central bank. So there's no the cash being used or being transferred, but only the number is being adjusted in the central bank system. Okay, and the Bitcoin actually is not centralized. It is a decentralized system, like what I showed you in the ancient times. This is a decentralized payment system, and the Bitcoin is more like that. Okay, so what you see here is you have a lot of Bitcoin users, and each user has a ledger. Okay, and the ledger is used to build up the records and see all the transactions in the system, and each Bitcoin miner or a server or even user builds a ledger. So and different individuals are connected with different ledgers. So we have a Jenny here, we have a John here, and each of them are connected with the different ledgers. It really depends on where these users are and how close they're to different ledgers in the separate world. And the ledgers contribute to one chain of information recording, and that one chain of information recording is called the blockchain of a Bitcoin. And now I'm about to show you what a blockchain is. So here you have a blockchain. So one block here, so this is a one block that contains a lot of information. Actually, it's not a lot. It's just 4,000 summaries of transactions. So for each transaction, like John pays Paul, there is a payer, there's a receiver, and there's amount of payment, and there's a time stamp. And also there are some different filters like the remaining balance of each person. So this kind of transaction information, 4,000 of them are built into one block. And one block is generated every 10 minutes. So 4,000 transactions in every 10 minutes. So that's not quite a lot. Okay, that's not quite a lot. If you look at the capacity of a PayPal, I'm not sure if you use PayPal or not. For each minute, there are 30,000 PayPal transactions around the world. So if you look at the numbers for Bitcoin, that is definitely much less efficient than other transaction methods. And what is really interesting here is for each blocks of the information, there is a header or the ID of the block. Okay, you can see there is a header, and that header could be a random number generated by the system. And why the header has to be there, I will tell you, and I will tell you later. But you should know that there's also a random number to connect this block to the blockchain system. Okay, so why do the ledging? So there is a transaction fee as a motivation, okay, but it's very tiny compared to bank fees. So wait a moment. So what is a transaction fee? If I use a Bank of America or Wells Fargo to do my savings and deposit, I don't pay them. I actually could receive some cash back by using their credit. Well, that is true, but still, you know that the banks make a lot of money from your savings, from your deposit, because they can invest your money and earn interest. And that interest is paid to the bank and not to you. So this is how the bank make money from your money. And you can see that the banks have all the nice buildings, nice offices in downtown, and their managers get paid with high salaries. So that's how they make money out of their customers and clients. So there is transaction fee if you are working with your bank. However, for Bitcoin, the transaction fee is very low, and it's almost minimum or very tiny. And there still has to be a transaction fee because that transaction fee will be rewarded to whoever do the ledging. If John pays Paul, this kind of transaction is recorded by a one Bitcoin user, and then this Bitcoin user will get a little bit Bitcoin, maybe 1 million of Bitcoin, one Satoshi as his or her reward. Okay, and that is a packaging rewards. And in this block, there are 4,000 summaries were built into a block, and the reward, if you are successful doing the packaging, then the reward is 50 Bitcoin for the first 4 years. Okay, so that's a pretty good. But at the uh, start of the Bitcoin history, in the first 4 years, one Bitcoin is really worth nothing. Uh, but in the next 4 years, if you keep mining, if you keep building the blocks, then the Bitcoin rewards will be cut in half to 25 Bitcoin for each block you successfully build and connect to the blockchain. And then in the next 4 years, that means from year 9 to from year 8 to year 12, then the rewards for packaging the blocks, for building the blocks is changed to 12.5 Bitcoin. Okay, so if we count all this Bitcoin rewarded to the Bitcoin packers, or we call them miners, then the Bitcoin amount in total could be 21 million. So there will be, okay, the maximum for Bitcoin volume is 21 million Bitcoins. Okay, so how do you get your packaging reward? And you have to present your certificate of work. And your certificate of work basically is the Bitcoin transaction summaries you collect from the system and build into a block. And that would be just to put it this way, it's just a Word file. Okay, it's just a Word file. That could help you understand easier. Okay, but just packaging is not enough. Packaging the information is not enough. You have to solve a mathematical problem, and this is the hardest part to get your Bitcoin. You see, if you are at the early stage of the game, it's going to be very easy to get Bitcoin, and then in the next 4 years, your rewards change to half of it, and then half of it, so on and so forth. And that's not just one of the difficulties for Bitcoin miners. The true biggest difficulty here is to solve a math problem. And if you successfully solve the math problem, then you get your rewards. You get the 50 Bitcoin if you did it in the first 4 years. That's from 2010 to 2014. And this process is called mining. And basically, all the miners are packers. So they pack all the information of the transactions in the Bitcoin system. Okay, so now let's talk about Bitcoin mining. How do you get your Bitcoin? All right. So in addition to packing all the information of the transactions, you solve a mathematical problem. And you really have to rely on your computer power to do the job. You really have to have a very good CPU for your computer system and not just your brain or a piece of paper and a pen. And the function we use here is called a hash function. Okay, hash function. You need to remember the word hash. Okay, so what is a hash? A hash is a series of binary numbers. So that is 256 digits of a bit. You see, one bit is one digit here. It could take the value of either 0 or 1. So if I throw in a number that can only be 0 or 1, this will be called a bit. And a hash basically contains 256 of them. And a hash is developed by the National Security Agency as a way to encrypt the intelligence during the Cold War. And for each hash, it contains a lot of information. For example, if I want to present the word apple, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I will use the SHA-256. So SHA-256 is a hash function designed by National Security Agency. So the word apple, when it's put into this function, it will be developed into a hash, 256 digits. If I change some part of the word apple, for example, I put I put a capitalized P instead of a lowercase p, then the hash would be completely different. All right. So just a small change of your input information, you would have a completely different hash. So that's why the hash function is very hard to decode. So that's why the hash function could protect your information from decoding by the enemies. All right. And the hash function, as I said, it contains 256 digits, and that's a lot. Okay, so let's dig into the most fundamental application of computer science. So in the virtual world, we use a bit to express the information, and one digit of a binary number is called a bit, and a binary number can only take 0 or 1. So if we have 8 digits, then we call it a byte. So 8 digits, I give an example here, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and you have 8 digits, and 2 to the power of 8 is 256. So basically, 8 digits can express 256 variations. And each variation could be used to express a letter, a number, a symbol, or a pixel of a picture. All right, so that's called 1 byte. So if you have 18 digits, that basically is 10 digits of byte, and that is called a megabyte. So MB is very familiar symbol. That is a megabyte, and 1 megabyte could express a picture, could express a Word document, and so on. And if you have if you have a 28 digits, and that is called a gigabyte, and that could contain a whole movie. And if you have a 38 digits, then that would be called a terabyte. So these are the size of a document or any kinds of computer storage in your system. And the 256 digits basically can express anything at any size. So we're talking about a very huge amount of information storage here. And if we get back to the hash function, and it is actually a 256 digits of bits, and you can see that if I put the word apple into the SHA-256 function designed by National Security Agency, then it will be transformed into a hash. Once again, a hash is a series of bits with 256 digits. And it is very easy to make apple to a hash, but it's very hard to work on the hash and solve it and get the word apple. So the only way to solve for it is to keep guessing. So you have to keep trying all kinds of combinations until that combination gives the word apple. And here I give you an example. It's an analogy. So here you see a mathematical formula. You use x to express y as to the cubic square plus natural logarithm of x plus the sine of x equals to y. So if you put a value for x, it's very easy to solve for the value for y. Okay, but it's very hard if you use a known y to solve for x. So if you solve backward, it's going to be very hard. And the only way to solve for x with a known y is to keep guessing. And that basically will require you to have a lot of computer power. And here is a 64 digits of expression. So basically 64 is 1/4 of 256. And and here you can see that the 64 digits are not the simple bits, the binary number 0, 1. They could be one of the 16 number or letters. So it could be either 0 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or letter A, B, C, D, E, F. So there are 6 symbols, and each symbol is expressed with 4 digits. Okay, so one symbol, 4 digits. If you have a 64 digits of symbols, so that's 256 digits. So that's still consistent with the hash function with 256 digits. And just like the example I showed you earlier, so if I put the word hello with this apostrophe, then you would come up with a hash function. And if I just change a little bit, if I delete that symbol following hello, then I would end up with a completely different hash. You can see all the numbers here, all the symbols are completely changed just because a little change in my word expression. Okay, so it is very easy to develop this hash function, but it's very hard to derive the original word from the hash function you know. Okay, so now let's talk about mining. So in the blockchain system, you have a block at the genesis, and then all the information for Bitcoin transactions will be contained in a blockchain, then built up to the genesis blockchain. So all the blocks will be chained up. All right, so that's why we call it a blockchain, not block something else. All right. And again, in each block, you have all the transactions like Matt pays Bob 10 Bitcoin, Bob pays John 5 Bitcoin, so on and so forth. And not just that, there are also details about the transactions like the addresses of the users, the wallet information. You know, each person has a wallet, and the timestamp of the transactions and the remaining balance of each users, and also the identification, of course, anonymous identification of each users. And then you will need to put a random number in order to connect your block into the blockchain. And why it is your block, not some other people's blocks? Because everybody is doing the information collection job, is building their own blocks. But why you could be successful in terms of connecting your block to the blockchain, the one and only blockchain in the Bitcoin ecosystem, is because you will put the right number into the block, and this number, this random number you're gonna put, will develop the right header, which qualifies your block to be connected to the blockchain. So basically, with all the information here, then you put another random number or any random symbol, then you would get a header. And that header will make you become successfully connected to the blockchain. So right here, if you just put a random number, that's a hash developed based on the formula. It's actually 2 rounds of a SHA-256 calculation. This is 1 round, and then you develop a hash, and you put the hash into the same function again to get another hash. But is this good enough? 1010101, is that good enough to make your block connected to the blockchain? Of course not. Okay, so how can you make your block connect to the blockchain? You have to make sure that the first certain digits, okay, let's say the first 12 digits of your hash contains only zeros, not ones, okay, no one, just zeros, and that basically qualifies your block to be accepted by the blockchain. And how do you get this 12 digits or 17 digits of zeros? There's nothing you can do except to keep throwing in random numbers. You throw one random number, it doesn't give you zeros. You keep up trying another number and another number. Maybe you try it a quadrillion times, then your hash will become coming with all these zeros as the beginning number. Okay, so that's the game. Okay, and once your block is chained up, then congratulations, you get the Bitcoin reward. So that basically is your mining payment. Okay, and the system requires the first n digits of blockchain to be 0. And how many digits? Is that 12 digits or 10 digits or 15 digits or 200 digits? It really depends. Okay, it depends on the system. The goal here, the setup by default, is that one blockchain is built in every 10 minutes. Okay, no matter how many people are doing the mining, collecting information, keep trying the random number, try to connect their block to the blockchain. No matter how many people are doing that, no matter how many competitors you are facing, each blockchain is built in every 10 minutes. So which means you have to be faster. You have to be the first to get all the certain integers of zeros in your header of the block. Okay, so you just keep adjusting, and the system will adjust n for game difficulty. If there's just one computer in the world for Bitcoin mining, and then the n will be very low. So let's say only 2 digits. So you just keep guessing. And the hash the system came out would be either 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, or 1, 1. So only 4 times. Only 4 times you and maximum of 4 trying, you would get the right header of 2 zeros, 2 digits of zeros. But if there are 1 million computers keep guessing, then of course each computer has a lot of power, and you have to and the system will automatically increase the difficulty of the game by making the n larger. Okay, otherwise the the zeros would be too fast to develop, and everybody could win the game. So there's no actually winners. Okay, but if there are less computer competing, the n would be smaller. The bottom line here is to build one blockchain in every 10 minutes. Okay, so the toughest job as a Bitcoin miner is not packing the transaction records, getting all the information. The toughest job is about guessing the random number you put in addition to the transaction records, and that random number will lead to the Bitcoin reward or work certificate, aka the right to build the next blockchain. And really rely on the computer power. You have to run the fastest computer in the world, and you have to have a lot of computers in the world to ensure higher possibility to win the game. So more computers, better winning chance for guessing the first n digits of a header. And of course, in this game, your electricity bill is your biggest enemy. Okay, it's not that hard to get the fastest computer, and it's not hard to get a lot of computers working for you, but it's very hard to pay for the electricity bills to run those computers. And here is a picture of a Bitcoin factories. As you can see, these are actually all computers, and there are no monitors, there are no screens, and these are just hard drives and CPUs. And all these computers do is keep guessing the random number to make sure, the block they develop has the first n digits of zeros in order to be connected to the blockchain. And each computer may work a block, and each computer may keep guessing a random number. But in order for one of the computers to get into the blockchain, you have to play the number game. You have to employ a lot of computers, so your chance of winning could be higher. All right. So for this blockchain, for these Bitcoin miners, they always look for places with a lower cost electricity. Some of them built their computer workshop next to a water dam, where the electricity is produced by the water dam, and some of the workshop are built in a very poor country where the electricity bills is the lowest. Okay. Now let's talk about some unique features of a Bitcoin system. Well, one of the unique feature is identification, and so in a traditional way, we recognize a client or customer, like a bank recognize a customer by their faces. So you can scan your face like what you did with your iPhone 12. It has a facial recognition function. Or a person's signature, the bankers should recognize their client's signature, or fingerprint. In the future, DNA may be used to identify the client. So you may give them a piece of your hair or part of your skin, of course, a small piece, in order to identify you as the right person. In the blockchain technology, the identification is done by electronic signature. Okay, so what is electronic signature? Let's put it this way. if there's a new user, all right, if you just download the Bitcoin app and you become a new user, and then the system will assign you a hash, okay, a series of random binary numbers. Of course, that's called a hash, and this is your private key, and that series of numbers is your private key, and you must keep it secret, and you must keep it safe, so nobody else could get it from you. Otherwise, your Bitcoin would be theirs. And don't forget that key, of course. That's very serious. And there are only 5 chances for you to try to input your key. If you forget it, then you just say goodbye to your Bitcoin fortune. And there are some engineers, one of the earliest users of Bitcoin. They have a lot of Bitcoin worth $20 million. And that engineer basically forgot his hash, his code. And he tried 3 times already, but still he couldn't figure it out. And he just got very crazy. And he tried to hire somebody to decode it and pay that person $2 million for rewards. Still nobody can do it. So the bottom line is, don't forget your hash. That's your private key. And your private key can lead to a public key that could be available to the public, so the public could know it is you. Okay? The public will not see your private key, but the public will see your public key. Okay? And then the private key can also generate an electronic address. So it's not like Illinois or Texas or Japan. It is your electronic address that is uniquely assigned to you. Okay? However, people cannot use your public key to decode to get your private key. All right? So it's like an alias. My internet alias is under a different name. It's called Solomon Wang. It's not my real name, Sang Wang. So that's what public see me as a Solomon Wang, but they cannot derive my real name from the public name. And here is how the system developed the identification process. So first, the private key is used to encrypt information. Okay, it's to encrypt the information, make it harder to understand. And the public key will be used to decrypt the information. What do we call Bitcoin? We call them cryptocurrencies because there's always the process of encryption and decryption. For example, if Bob pays John 10 Bitcoin, and then this transaction is announced to the Bitcoin system, to all the users around you in the virtual world, and there will be a hash calculation for this transaction. So there will be a hash, 256 digits, and then there will be a summary. Okay, and your private key will be used to encrypt the summary into a passcode. Okay, Bob pays John 10 Bitcoin. That's it. That's what it says in this hash, and your private key will encrypt this hash of summary into a passcode. Okay, and now you're Bob. Okay, you're Bob, and you broadcast this to the public with this transaction information and also public key and the passcode. Your private key just developed for you. And other users can verify this. Of course, they can see the hash calculation. That's very easy for them to see. And they will see that Bob pays John 10 Bitcoin. Okay, so everybody knows that, and that's a summary. But this is not good enough because other users have to verify this information. And they will verify with the public key you give to them and the passcode you give to them. So the passcode will be used to decrypt the information, and then you would end up with the summary. Okay, so that's a summary, the same information decrypt through the public key and the passcode. So without one of the two, nobody could decrypt the information and get the summary. So if the summary matches the summary you announced to the public, then it's a good information, and the deal is authentic, and then the deal will be built into the ledgers, and then everybody accept that. If this summary developed from your public key and the passcode you give to everybody does not meet the original announcement from you, then the broadcast is forged. Then the deal is not authentic. Then nobody would recognize this transaction. So that's how a transaction is identified and verified in the system. That's a very unique process that involves the passcode to decrypt the information, and then the public will use the passcode to uh, 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 decrypt the information. And another unique feature of blockchain technology is a better way to check balance. So everybody has all the information, okay? So everybody knows everything since Genesis, thanks to the blockchain. Because if you look at the blockchain, it's just a one hash after another, after another, after another, and the very beginning hash is the blockchain Genesis. So let's say in the middle of the blockchain, right here, it's not in the middle, it's actually at the end. So Bob receives 50 Bitcoin, okay, and then Bob pays 20 Bitcoin. So do you think Bob is able to pay 20 Bitcoin after he received 50 Bitcoin? Yes, he could. All right, and this would be accepted by everybody. However, if Bob pays John 60 Bitcoin, when everybody knows Bob only has 50 Bitcoin, then this 60 Bitcoin payment will be rejected. Okay. And there's another way to detect double payments. For example, if Bob just have 10 Bitcoin in total and he makes two payments, 10 Bitcoin to Jan and 10 Bitcoin to Alan, and Bob simultaneously announced these two transactions to the system, and as I said, each transaction will be collected by the users around this Bob. So this transaction, Bob pays Jan 10 Bitcoin. That information will be collected by John, Pony, and Jack. And there's John and Mustafa who collect information about the 10 Bitcoin payment to Alan. All right. So there are two groups of people receive two kinds of information. Okay, for John, John is in both groups, and John sees both information, and John knows that Bob only has 10 Bitcoin, and he's paying 20 Bitcoins to two individuals, so this will not work. So to John, both summaries are rejected. But for Pony and Jack in this group, Pony and Jack try to build the next blockchain. They also are Bitcoin users. They want to get the Bitcoins by packing the information. So they will build this 10 Bitcoin payment to Jan into their blocks, Pony's block and Jack's block. And for Mustafa, will build the information he receives, 10 Bitcoin to Alan, to his blockchain. Okay, and you will see these two pieces of transactions are built into different blocks separately, but only one block will gain the right to be connected to the blockchain, and only one will win, meaning that it's either this transaction is abandoned or this transaction is abandoned, while the other get accepted. And who and which transaction would be more likely to be accepted? And I think it should be this one, the payment to Jan, because there are two users have received this information, and there are two users are building this information to the blockchain, and the computers owned by these two people would likely to be more than the computers owned by Mustafa, unless Mustafa is very rich, has a lot of computers working for him. Okay, and the basic principle here is the longest chain survives. So right here we have blockchain N, and we keep building blockchains from N. So we have N plus 1, N plus 2, so on and so forth. And then we have two blockchain miners, miner A and miner B. Okay, and we also have blockchain miner C. Okay, and the blockchain miner C will build the information based on N plus 1, N plus 2, and blockchain miner A. Okay, so if miner C choose to build on miner A's blockchain, then miner B's blockchain will be abandoned by the system because this chain is longer. N plus 1, N plus 2, plus A plus C, this chain is longer than N plus 1, N plus 2, plus B. Okay, so the shorter chain will be abandoned, and that will not be recorded into the system. Okay, so if there is a blockchain miner D keeps building blockchains based on the information from miner B, then this chain will be accepted, and the blockchain miner A will be abandoned. All right, and there's also some other advantages of blockchain technology, and that is good for fighting falsification. So what happens if there is a cheater in the Bitcoin system? For example, after blockchain N, there's a cheater try to build the blockchain by himself. So he tried to say that Bob only pays Alan 1 Bitcoin. However, in the existing Bitcoin, the information is Bob has paid Alan 10 Bitcoin already. Okay, not 1, 10. So that's the accepted blockchain by everybody. But now there's a cheater try to change that record by saying Bob pays Alan 1 Bitcoin. What was the rule here? The rule, as I said, was the longest chain survive. So people will accept this chain because it is longer and abandon the cheater's blockchain because it is shorter. It is cutting short. Okay. So under what circumstance could the cheater win? So one is that the cheater can keep building blockchain on and on and on and on. The cheater could build more blockchains on his cheated blockchain until the blockchain deriving from the cheater's block is longer than the existing blockchains. And then people would accept the longest chain and the cheater will win. Okay, why could a cheater have so much power to build a longer chain all by himself? The answer is the cheater has more than half of the computers in this world. I mean, the computers mining Bitcoin. So if the cheaters has more than half of the Bitcoin computers in the world, then definitely the cheater can use all the computer power to build blockchains and to be more efficient, be faster to build his chain until his chain is longer than everybody else's chain. And in that case, people would accept this. Well, just summarize what I just said. So scenario one, the cheater has less computer power than the rest of the world. So that cheater's record will not be accepted because it is impossible for that cheater to build a chain longer than the existing blockchain. Scenario two is that the cheater has more computer power than the rest of the world. So then the cheater will win, and the record, whatever the cheater designed, the record will be accepted. Okay. However, if that's the case, then the profit from cheating would be less than the profit from mining. Okay. In order to change the information to falsify the record, the cheater has to employ all of the computing power, pay a lot of electricity bills, and that's a lot of cost. And also, if the cheater has more computing power, why the cheater not to mine for himself instead of cheat? So if the cheater just mine by himself with half of the computing power in the world, then the cheater could basically get everything. Don't you agree? Okay, so there's no need for the cheater to do. At this point, I want to mention another cryptocurrency. It's called a Bitcoin Gold. Well, Bitcoin Gold has the name Bitcoin, but it's a completely different animal. It's a different cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin Gold has been abandoned because this happened. Because somewhere in the middle, there was a cheater with a lot of computers jump in and change the records, say, hey, I, Mr. Cheater, has all the Bitcoin Gold, so all of you have zero. Why could he do that? Because this cheater has more computing power than the rest of the individuals in this game. So that cheater won, and all the Bitcoin belongs to that person. So basically, Bitcoin Gold is abandoned because the game was ruined by a cheater with more computing power. Okay, now let's talk about the ecosystem of Bitcoin. So here we have the ownership of a Bitcoin changing from miners to all kinds of institutional investors or individual investors. So the gray area stands for the ownership of the miners. So at the beginning of the game in the year of 2009, 100% Bitcoin are owned by miners. You can see it's all gray here. As the time goes by, the ownership of the miners declines on and on and on and on and on and shrink to 30% in the year of 2012. It's because the miners who mine Bitcoin, who get Bitcoin as rewards for their work, sell their Bitcoins to other investors. So who are the other investors? There are humblebags like whales who owns over 5,000 Bitcoins, and there are sharks who owns 500 to 1,000 Bitcoins, and there are also shrimp owns less than 1 Bitcoin. So you can see that the ecosystem has the ownership structure has changed from 100% miner owned to a combination of ownership. The miners own some still, and different kind of investors either own a lot of shares or a very small amount of shares. They all have their shares of Bitcoin, and a large amount is owned by the exchange of Bitcoins. Okay, so what are the exchanges? So there was an exchange for Bitcoin, where people can buy and sell Bitcoins, but that exchange is not safe. There has been reportedly a lot of theft or losses of Bitcoin happening to those exchanges. You know, the exchanges are designed by computer, and computers are always vulnerable to hackers. So there were malware attacks, and that caused accidental loss of Bitcoin. And the CEO of the exchange basically hold too much responsibility and committed suicide, and that happened to this exchange called MTGoX. And also some other drawbacks, like as I said, the transaction is very slow. Every 10 minutes, there could be only 4,000 transactions, which is much less compared to Visa card, compared to PayPal, or any other kind of a worldly accepted transaction method. Okay, so the transaction could be delayed. If you make a transaction now, your partner or the Bitcoin system would not recognize it or confirm it until 10 minutes later. And there's also an economic rule called Gresham's law. So Gresham's law basically stands for the circulation system will be dominated by bad currencies, and all the good currencies will be driven away out of circulation. And that happens to gold, that happens to US dollars, that happens to cash. So what happened was, many years ago, only two kinds of metals were accepted as currencies. One is gold, one is silver. But in late 19th century, a lot of gold were discovered in North America, South America, and also Australia, South Africa. So there's too much gold flooded into the monetary system. So gold becomes more abundantly provided, more supplied, and is also the gold's value in terms of a silver also declined. So that's why we call it bad currency. Its value in terms of silver gets declined. So what people do was people will spend gold because the value is going down, so people will use gold, spend gold, and if people have silver, they will not spend silver. When silver's value is expected to increase, you should store silver as an investment instead of spending it as money. All right, and also in the year of 1970s, so what happened was before 1970, there was a gold standard accepted globally by free countries. In that standard, each ounce of gold is an exchange of 35 US dollars at a fixed amount. But when US dollar has been printed on and on and on and on and on, there are so much dollars flooding in the world monetary system, but the gold is quite limited. So the dollar value in terms of gold would be declined, and dollar becomes the bad currency, and gold value increases. So everybody just save the gold and spend the dollar. Therefore, gold is not a currency anymore, and everybody is using US dollar as the world currency. It also happens to cash and credit. You know, cash is a better currency than credit because for to buy $100 product, you can either use cash or use a credit. But 100 credit is like a $96 of cash. When you spend a credit, the merchant you buy things from actually receive a 96 or 97 dollars in cash. Okay, so the credit is cheaper than cash, and therefore what people do nowadays, everybody just spend credit, and the people will save cash if they have some. So credit is being circulated and cash is being saved, and this is of course in isolation of the convenience of using credit. And in the Bitcoin story, you see when the Bitcoin value increased from $0 to $60,000, then everybody would think Bitcoin as a good investment, as a good currency. Everybody would save it. Nobody could want to spend their Bitcoin. So Bitcoin will not be circulated, will not be a currency, and it's just lose its original purpose as a global currency. All right. So in that case, then Bitcoin will not be circulated. So it will lose its function. So when Bitcoin was used like 5 years ago, there are a lot of people accept Bitcoin payments, and they also spend Bitcoin, like the furniture stores, like online gaming shops. But nowadays, people only accept Bitcoin as payment. Not a lot of people are spending Bitcoin because if they have Bitcoin, they try to save it. The next drawback is structural problems. As I mentioned earlier, theoretically, there could be only a maximum of 21 million Bitcoin in the world, and the wealth people create in the world keep increasing on and on. So the price of stuff, goods, and services in terms of Bitcoin would keep declining, and that creates a deflation problem. And other advantages of blockchain technology, well, this is a summary. So what would be the pros of a blockchain technology? Is it cost effective? How to explain this? Just remember the bankers are rich, all right? But because the bankers charge a lot for these monetary services. But for the Bitcoin, for any blockchain based cryptocurrencies, the cost would be very low to minimum. And also the users of a blockchain or cryptocurrencies are anonymous. Still, there are ways to find you if you use Bitcoin, but compared to regular transactions with your credit card, with your bank account, using Bitcoin is much more shady, dark, and anonymous. And the blockchain, again, can contain massive information. As I said, we use a hash 256 to represent the information, and there could be a lot of information contained here. And also the transactions are transparent. Everybody in the system knows everything, and it could be auditable because each blockchain of information could be verified by the general public of the blockchain users. And there are some counterfeiting features, and the record is permanent. It cannot be erased or falsified, as I mentioned earlier. And also, it is secure to use a blockchain technology. However, if you use cryptocurrencies, you have to be very careful. You have to remember your passcode, remember your private key, and not let your computer get hacked. Some people just store their private key into a computer that is not connected to the internet. Okay, but if the Bitcoins or any other cryptocurrencies are being traded in an open exchange or electronic platform, then that platform is very vulnerable to hackers and with a high possibility of get stolen. Based on the blockchain technology Bitcoin, there are also Ethereum, And Ethereum is another cryptocurrency which is developed based on blockchain. In addition to the transaction records, A pays B, B pays C, there are smart contracts being built. The contracts could be your rental contract, your insurance contract, any assets ownership contract built into it. And when people build these contracts, serve the public, serve the community, then they will get rewards for their hard work, and that reward is